Here I'm adding in some temporary bracing to hold the frame square. The frame was constructed tightly to the window. Later, I will slightly trim the window so it will easily fit inside the frame. So here's the window frame that I built. And here you can see the sliding dovetail type joint that'll be used to hold the window in place and still allow me to disassemble the cabin easily. So this strip of plywood that's ripped down into this dovetail shape is going to be attached to the end of the logs. Today I'm working on the door for the micro cabin, and very simple construction. I just used standard boards off the sawmill, and they're not tongue and grooved or splined or anything like that. Just using planks for Z-bracing. This will eventually be a Dutch door, so I built these two smaller brace arrangements, and I'll cut the door in half right down the middle here to make a Dutch door. So since there's no tongue and groove or spline, eventually I'll have these cracks will probably open up as the door continues to dry out or with changes in the seasons. So what I'll do there is, once I have the stain already completed on the door, I'll come back and add batten strips to cover these cracks. And this will be the interior face of the door with the Z-braces on the outside. So next up, I'm going to be building the door frame. I wanted to build the door first and then come back and fit the frame accurately to the door. So what I'll do is add some 1/8 inch thick spacers around the edges of the door. They're just temporary spacers. And then I'll build the door frame to that oversized door shape. And then I'll be able to go back and remove those spacers later, and that'll leave a nice 1/8 of an inch gap all the way around the door. So that's what I'll work on next, door frame. So we're going to put the window frame in now. You can see the dovetail slots I have here in the frame. And initially I had made dovetail blocks for each log. And I tried assembly, and it really was too much of a pain to try to get everything to align. And I decided I really didn't need to have a connection on every single log. And I'm also going to go ahead and install the frame now while I'm at this height, and then add the logs individually instead of trying to slide this down and insert it right into the opening after the logs are stacked up higher, I think it's going to work better to install the frame at about this stage of construction. There we go. So that's fairly sturdy like that. I actually stiffened it up quite a bit. Now for the door frame, I don't have the dovetail blocks attached to the log ends. Initially I had those installed too, and it was too much trouble to try to get everything to line up and insert this into the wall after the logs were stacked. So instead of doing it that way, I decided I'm just going to use a few screws to attach it. Later I may revisit doing a dovetail connection on these log ends here and here, but for now I'm just going to basically trap the end of the log front to back like this, and then screws will draw it tight on about every other log. It really won't take that many screws. Okay, so there's nothing right now keeping this from being pulled outward, so I will have to add a few screws to hold that later. As you can see, the door is fairly small size. The whole cabin is scaled down, so the door itself is also smaller. But looks like it's going to work pretty well. Just need to add the door hardware. Of course, a lot more finished work to do on the cabin, but we're getting pretty close.